Hello everyone, my name is Talia Carol Cachimuel. I'm Ecuadorian, I'm from Otavalo, and I'm here on behalf of the International Leonard Peltier Defense Committee to say thank you for everyone for being here today. It's truly an honor. We're going to start off with an opening prayer and ceremony led by Fred DeCharlie and Mitch Walking Elk. Thank you.
Bujo ni jani shinabi du wasumugi nini indigo makwa indu demo ga kaning indu njaba imi wende ne ayan o ma nungam nin jagnashimum. So I'll speak a little in English. Fred DeCharlie's my name in English. Lightning Man's my name in Ojibwe. I'm from Red Lake and I'm down here to support my relatives here in our goal. And I would like to open up in some words in Anishinaabe Mo and Anishinaabe language on behalf of our gathering, for everybody here and for our common goal of for what we're gathering for. So I'll get right into it, and so miigwech for listening, letting me be here. Aha naganisid manito wasamo ginini indigo makwa indu demo ga kaning indu njaba imi wendini aya no ma manito niwi kagwechi mogongo manito shawe no mawad ga kinani shinabi do kungam niwi ko chuenden de wegan minowani shinabe nakaman meo ma manito dagabasina kinani shinabe minowa wiru kawad ga kinani shinabi do kungam niwi kagwechi mogongo shawe no mawad ga kinani shinabi do kungam mangetu go ninitan shinabe mjae nimishin niwi kagweji mogongo dapanana sema kina manito goshko bewi sub udapanana sema nagani sit manito ambeo ma wiru kawishin wiru kawa adga kina nishinabe duk nungam ambeo ma daga bisinin kina we kina gego manito miga chenewe ndasu jik nembe mitesiwen o kishigak kigaye manito nimi ko chuenden mino bimat tesiwen nungam mashkute wawa nishinabe duk nungam Bindigen manito, bindigen, daga besende na kina nishinabe, kina uye kina geko, migo cheno e daso jik, nembe metesi uno o kishigaki ga manito, aha. I got you, bro. I got it.
Thank you so much for that prayer and this music that's grounding us. Next, we would like to introduce the Machika Dance Group. Thank you so much for being here and joining us in solidarity for our elder Leonard Peltier. We appreciate it. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. Thank you. Thank you so much. Can we please have a round of applause for this incredible calling of the ancestors? You must remember that Leonard's freedom is a global struggle for indigenous people. We have a group here that honor their Mexican ancestors here before us, and this is so beautiful having this offering of our collective visions of liberation that span beyond these so-called borders. So thank you so much. Thank you. you. Can we have another round of applause? Thank you. Muchas gracias por tu apoyo. Muchas gracias.
Thanks, Gracias. Hit that like, follow, and share. Thanks so much.
Next, we'd like to welcome up to the stage Lisa Belger, the Executive Director of the AIM Grand Governing Council.
Bonjour, miigwech, everybody. Bonjour. We want to say thank you to, especially to the local indigenous, our relatives from this area, for welcoming us here. We were fed and we were greeted in a traditional way, and as our group came in, we were honored our relatives in the sky. But I just want to stand here and say that I am so happy that we are all here today, that so many of you have taken that time to come and to walk and to pray with us and to help us with this prayer to free our elder Leonard Peltier. And it's been a long journey. It's not just been the journey of however many weeks it took us to get here from Minneapolis. I grew up with the American and I grew up going to trials. In high school, I went to Leonard's trial in Milwaukee. That's a long time because I'm pretty old. You know, and it's time that this country wakes up and they do the right thing. They need to let our elder go. They need to free our elder, Leonard Peltier. And growing up in AIM, you know, we've always stood by and stood strong for Leonard. And we're not going to give up. And you'll hear that in the speeches that are to come with our relatives, with his defense team from his family. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to say, miigwech for everyone for joining us in this prayer. Miigwech, free Peltier!
Thank you, Lisa, so much. Next, it is a privilege to introduce Madonna Thunderhawk. Woo! Give it up!
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Damn, like it never works for me. Anyway, first of all, you know, it's been a long haul. You know, I stood with Leonard back in the day, you know, wars Dubon and, you know, a few firefights, you know, with the U.S. government, but there's not too many Wounded Knee vets. But I want to thank all of you, because I think, you know, those of you that have the phones and the cameras and stuff, turn it around and get the whole, because you people are the ones, when this is over, you're going to go home and you're going to get those same phones going, and you're going to get your organizations and your councils and whoever, and you're going to get them to start calling in, because we can't let the pressure up between now and the time that hopefully Biden does his pardoning. So in between that time, we have to keep that pressure up. And I know it's really hard for us to gather because we got to come clear across the country. But our people back home, they know we're here. And with this new technology and this social media and stuff, they know we're here in different ones. And our YG here, our sister, you know, Marlene Corbett, she has her phone and she takes, you know, pictures and she does the videos and sends them home immediately. And so everybody knows that, what's going on. So, I'm just looking at all of you, and I thank you for being here, because, like I said, it's been many years, 46 years? And we do this every year, we continue hoping. But, it's got to happen. Clemency's got to, it's got to happen. So, again, you need to pat yourselves on the back, for being here and doing this for Leonard. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate your words. Next, it's an honor to introduce Rachel Thunder, who's going to share with us a little bit more about this beautiful spiritual journey that has come to an end here in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Tanse, Gananaska-Molten, Apsis Nanahiwak, Apsis Rachel Thunder. I just said hello and thank you to each of you individually and to all of you collectively. I'm Plains Cree, Treaty 6, Nihiwak. My name is Rachel Thunder. I'm the director for the American Indian Movement, the True People of Indiana and Kentucky, and I'm the lead organizer for the Walk to Justice. The Walk to Justice, it just started on September the 1st in Minneapolis, Minnesota, 2.5 months ago. It's 1,103 miles, and we just completed this last mile today. We walked from that Washington Monument to right here where we're standing now, demanding and asking for clemency for our elder, for Elder Leonard Peltier, that it's time that they let him go. This walk, it really started, though, about 2 years ago. There were those of us in the movement that were having dreams about our elder, Leonard Peltier, that's been locked up for 47 years. He's the longest held indigenous political prisoner held by the United States government. These dreams, they were coming to us, the women of the Grand Governing Council. And some of the dreams that I was having, I can speak on those. I would be in Leonard's prison cell with him. And he would be sitting on his bed with his face in his hands, and he wouldn't say anything. And I would say to him, "Don't worry, your people haven't forgotten about you. Don't worry, your people are coming to get you. Don't worry, AIM is coming to get you." So these dreams, they kept coming, right? And we took these dreams, we took them into prayer, and we took them into ceremony. And through those prayers and through those ceremonies, that's how it came in that we were to walk. That we were to walk as the American Indian Movement from the heart of the movement in Minneapolis, Minnesota to Washington, D.C. To these people that are here in these positions of influence and power to let our elder go. I've spent a lot of time these past weeks thinking about justice. This is the walk to justice, but what is justice? Justice, the definition of justice is just behavior and treatment. We marched to the Supreme Court the other day for the ICWA rally, for their opening arguments for the Indian Child Welfare Act. And I saw there on the top of the Supreme Court, it said equal justice under law. Under their law. Our people follow natural law. Our people have been following natural law for thousands of years. Our people have been here since the beginning of time. This law, this system that they oppress on us, has only been here for 530 years. To me, justice embodies honor. To me, justice embodies integrity. To me, justice embodies fairness. But I ask you, and I ask the system, where is the honor in taking our children? Where is the integrity of protecting our women and our elders, our missing, murdered Indigenous women and people? Where is the fairness when we're above 38% of the national average for incarceration rates? So where's the justice? That's why we called this Walk the Walk to Justice, because of course we're asking for justice for our elder. But we're asking for justice for our people. Because just like in those dreams I was having where I was in Leonard's prison cell with him, there's a piece of every single one of us that is still in that prison cell with him as long as he's still held. This walk, it's a prayer and it's a ceremony, and that's how we've treated it the entire time. We've stayed grounded in that way. This walk, we did it in that way, in that traditional way, to carry this prayer here, and we suffered for it. It's not easy. It's not easy to walk 1,103 miles. It's not easily mentally or spiritually or physically or emotionally. But that suffering doesn't compare at all to the suffering that Leonard Peltier has endured for 47 years. That suffering doesn't compare at all to what the family has been through. His children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren. And that's what we're here asking for. Yeah, we're asking for clemency. We're asking for him to be able to be with his people. To go to ceremony, to hear the drum. To walk free on our Mother Earth. To be able to hold his children and his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren that he's never met. That's what we're asking as the American Indian movement. What is AIM? What is the American Indian movement? To me, the American Indian movement has existed far longer than 1968. The American Indian movement has existed since these settlers, these colonizers, that way of thinking, that way of oppression arrived on these shores over 530 years ago. AIM has always been here to help fight colonization. Thinking a lot about the past and present. Was thinking a lot about the words of Russ Means and Dennis Banks and Clyde Belcourt and John Trudell. Listening to their words and their speeches and just how relevant they were then and now. How Leonard was locked up then and now. And so a part of this walk has been bringing together that past and this present. To ignite that fire in the people and the communities, to ask for our elder to be released. I've never been here to Washington, D.C. This is my first time here. This system, this place that I've always heard so much about. And honestly, when we walked to the Supreme Court and I saw the Capitol, this system is fragile. This is nothing. This is a facade that they create with their propaganda and their misinformation and this image that they create of this power that they have. The real power is this land. And the real power is in the indigenous people of this land. So we carried this prayer here, and I want to acknowledge all of those walkers and those runners that were a part of this prayer. The way that they carried this so honorably and respectfully and humbly. And so we want to take the time to ask anybody that was a part of walking or running that they come here and they stand here on these steps. We're going to honor them now. So I'm calling on those walkers and those runners to come here and the Eagle staffs to come down. Until Leonard Peltier is free, none of us are free. AIM is coming for you, Leonard. Your people are coming for you, Leonard. Get down there on the steps. Get down. Make room for the walkers down there. AIM forever, forever AIM.
Thank you. Thank you to the walkers, the runners, to Rachel Thunder for that beautiful, powerful message. Thank you. We're here today because the runners and their journey, so please honor them, thank them. Take note of who they are. They're the warriors that just completed this beautiful spiritual walk in honor of our elders. So thank you, thank you. Next up, we have Nick Essie, who will be joining us to speak about Leonard Peltier.
I just want to say it's a really beautiful day to be here in Piscataway land, on indigenous land. We're here not to just beg for Leonard Peltier. They think that we come to Washington, D.C., to a place that's named after a man that Haudenosaunee people call Town Destroyer, to beg. But they have it wrong. We're here to tell you what is right. People who speak truth do not beg power. They speak truth to power. And all of you, we are power. Not these monuments to white supremacy. Not this monument to a genocider who killed Dakota people. We started this walk in Minneapolis, the place where the Dakota genocide happened, where they hanged 38 Dakota patriots plus 2 other leaders under the orders of Abraham Lincoln. And it's no coincidence that we're here at the footsteps of the Lincoln Memorial, at the footsteps of a genocider, to remind this country where we came from and what it owes us, not what we owe them. There's another story to be told about the walk to justice that my good relative Rachel Thunder is a part of, that the American Indian movement is a part of. 50 years ago, this week, in November of 1972, the Trail of Broken Treaties came to Washington, D.C. to meet with the president with a position paper with 22 points for treaty rights, for health care, to protect children. And they were rebuffed by the Nixon administration, who cared more about waging a war in Vietnam than he cared about the people here, the original indigenous people here in this country. And so they took over the Bureau of Indian Affairs when the president refused to meet with them. And they occupied the building for about a week. And in that building they found the evidence of the crime, of the mismanagement of millions of dollars in lease money for Indian land, for all the children that had been taken from their families, the mismanagement of the Indian health services, all these things that are protected not just by treaties, but by the Constitution, a document that was written before the treaties, that's much older than our treaties, where it says that treaties are the supreme law of the land, Article 6. And in those documents they found the mismanagement, the centuries of mismanagement by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. The Trail of Broken Treaties Manifesto also became the framework for the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. It launched the international indigenous movement at the United Nations. That began here 50 years ago today. Ask yourself why they venerate a genocider and why they don't venerate our heroes of indigenous resistance. Leonard Peltier was part of the Trail of Broken Treaties. He was in what they called the Native American Embassy 50 years ago today. They didn't have guns. They didn't have anything. All they had was their prayer and their truth. But they were evicted, and then began the surveillance by the FBI. So when we talk about the American Indian movement, the Red Power movement, the Trail of Broken Treaties, that history is still relevant today. Leonard Peltier was taken from his family by Indian agents and put into a boarding school. The Indian Child Welfare Act, at the time it was passed in 1978, was meant to protect Native children, to reverse the process of Indian child removal. And in their findings in congressional hearings here, where we're at, they found that anywhere between 25% to 35% of Native children during that time when that bill was passed have been adopted out to white families or foster care systems. Imagine a quarter of our people have been adopted out, taken from their families. And now we have 9 unelected judges trying to adjudicate what that means, what indigenous sovereignty means. In some ways, this system is moving backwards as we, as indigenous people, are trying to move forwards. Standing Rock was a turning point for us. We have one of our good relatives, a water protector here, who can speak to that. Even when we don't take up guns, even when we stand in prayer, we're still considered criminals. Much like our Dakota Patriots, who this man killed. We're still considered criminals to this day. Because a report found last year that a quarter of carbon emissions and greenhouse gas emissions coming from the United States and Canada were being challenged by indigenous-led movements. We are punching way above our weight class when it comes to being good ancestors for future generations and preventing climate change. They don't care about Native children. They don't care about indigenous rights. What they care about is their bottom line, which is money. The lawyers who are arguing that case to overturn the Indian Child Welfare Act, they're from the Gibson Dunn law firm, which represents oil companies. How many pieces of legislation have gone through state legislators to criminalize being a water protector? How many times have we sat before lawyers sitting on the other side saying, did you witness a violent act when you were at Standing Rock? Did you participate in direct action? Are you a water protector? Hell yeah, I'm a water protector. But they want us to be ashamed of that history. They want us to be ashamed of Leonard Peltier. They want Leonard Peltier, our history as Indigenous people, is locked up with him right now. Obama was a coward for not letting him out. So too was Clinton. I was here in 2016. A lot of us were here in 2016. Leonard's son died here in 2016 trying to get his dad out of prison. Anything that happens, every single day that he sits in jail, the blood and the guilt is not on our hands. It's on Biden's hands. He could change this today with a phone call. It's gross and it's disgusting that we have to come here and explain this to people. But our truth is more powerful than their vanity, than their greed, and it's more powerful than their hate for us. Because we know that each one of you is going to go back and do more than just beg on the colonizer's shoulder and cry and ask for our land back. Stop taking our children. When has that ever worked? We have to fight back. We have to organize. We have to turn to each other. We have to create a new system from the ground up. One that reflects indigenous values. Because otherwise, we're not going to have an earth to live on. It's not a matter of becoming indigenous. It's not a matter of whether or not you think that our truth is the truth. Because tomorrow won't come if you don't listen to us today. We won't have a planet tomorrow if we keep doing what we're doing right now. And that's what Leonard Peltier represents. That's why he's a threat to this system. It's because they know once Leonard Peltier is free, as Rachel said, we're all going to be free. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nick, for that insightful analysis and historical context, and to all the speakers who have brought in the most important message that we have today. To introduce Mr. James Reynolds.
Thank you. I was the U.S. Attorney appointed by the President, confirmed by the Senate, whose job is set out in the federal Constitution, which is to represent the people of the United States in legal matters in my district. And I did that job, but I also, when I first took the job, they brought a case in which was brought before us and showed that the judge had said that not only do I represent the United States, but among the United States that I represent is Leonard, is the defendant. So when you're in a case, I have the same duty that I have to represent the people and do justice, is to see that justice is done for Leonard. So 30 years later, when I'm sitting at home in Florida, which is nicer than here, by the way, I heard Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! Say that Leonard had made an application for leniency and clemency. And without talking to anyone else, without being urged by anyone else, I felt it was my duty as the former United States Attorney to see that justice was done for Leonard. Because at this point, enough was enough. And so I wrote a letter to President Obama, joining with Leonard in asking for his clemency and the commutation of his sentence. I did that because I thought it was my duty for justice. Because justice in this case is compassion for Leonard. They're equal. And that's why I did what I did. That's why I'm here today, freezing in the cold weather, but well worth it, because of the fact that what Leonard had done was not what I felt was such that 30 years later he should still be sitting in prison. And that's been 10 years ago, and it still hasn't improved any in the meantime. I've also written to President Trump and also to President Biden asking for this. And I think that it's my duty as the U.S. Attorney representing the people of the United States asking for justice and a justice for Leonard. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for being here in the cold right now. This just goes to show how important it is to have people power and people mobilization like this, and it means a lot for all of us that y'all are here right now. Next, it is my pleasure to introduce Judge Kevin Sharp, who is Leonard Peltier's attorney. He's going to be speaking to the important facts of the case and providing an analysis on why we need clemency for Leonard Peltier now.
You know, I'm standing here, I've listened to a lot of really great speakers, and I walked from the Washington Monument and came down with everyone and really felt intimidated by that, and even to some extent unworthy to be part of this struggle for Leonard that's been going on for decades. And I walked this space yesterday, and I've walked it today, and I stand here with the Lincoln Memorial behind me and the Washington Monument and the Capitol, and I feel humbled and intimidated about whether or not I have the words to express the gravity of this request and the importance of clemency for Leonard Peltier. And it occurred to me that what all of these things mean, what they all represent, are our Constitution. And this piece of paper, it's the only thing that stands between us and injustice. It's the only thing that stands between Leonard's death in a prison cell and freedom and justice. And all of this and everything that's happened today and listening to everyone reminds me that freedom is fragile. Rachel said that earlier. Freedom is fragile. And that's why we have this Constitution to protect us and to protect Leonard. And I've taken the oath to support and defend that Constitution multiple times. I did it when I joined the U.S. Navy. I did it when I became a lawyer. that you after you pass your bar exam, in order to practice law, you stand in front of the justices of your Supreme Court, and you take an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And then I was fortunate enough to be appointed and confirmed as a district court judge, as a federal court judge in the district court in Tennessee. And I took that oath again. And each time I took that oath, it reminded me of why we take that oath and the importance of that oath. And it stays with me. It's why I do what I do. And when I saw Leonard's case, and I'll tell you, I hadn't lived it like you have lived it. I came to this with fresh eyes and a clean slate. And I looked at this as a member of the federal judiciary. I had resigned by that time, but I looked at it with that mentality. And what happened was clear to me. The constitutional violations that occurred in order to convict this man were clear to me. That seemed easy, and I couldn't understand why we're still talking about this 43 years later. How are we talking about this? The violations are so open and so obvious. What I didn't understand, and what I've been coming to over the last 3.5 years, is the why. And I'm still peeling back the layers of that onion, but you've lived it, you understand the why. But it all takes me back to, what has my life been except in supporting this Constitution? And that's why Leonard's clemency is not just about Leonard. Leonard's clemency is critical for Leonard. He should be out. He never should have been in. But it's important to all of us, because it's the only thing standing between us and injustice. It's all we've got. And so I took on that to do what little I could do in service to my country and in service to Leonard and in service to that Constitution. And I'm asking the President of the United States to do the same. He took that oath. I took that oath. He understands that oath. He needs to grant clemency to Leonard Peltier. And he needs to do that and say to the world, justice means something. Our Constitution means something. He needs to say to this community, and it's not just about the Native American community, but it's an important message to the Native American community that you matter, that Leonard Peltier matters. And it also says back to all of us that we all matter. This country matters. This Constitution matters. Mr. President, grant clemency to Leonard Peltier. In this today, you have the absolute power. Sign the piece of paper in this. So I thank all of you for taking the time to listen to me. I thank all of you for being here for Leonard and for being here for yourselves, for being here for this country. Thank you all for listening to me. I hope that I've added some small piece to this, but I'm not quitting, and I know there's no one out here that's quitting either. So thank you all. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Judge Sharp, for those words. And I just want to echo that we're not giving up. And that's why we're here, because we aren't going to give up. We have elders here. We have children here. We have an intergenerational group of folks here that are speaking out and using their voice to say that we demand clemency for Leonard Peltier and that we will not give up. And that this fight hasn't been given up for the past 47 years, and we will continue until we see freedom and justice for Leonard Peltier. And that is for a fact. Thank you so much. Next, we will have a song by Robbie Romero. Thank you.
talking about freedom. Freedom for Peltier. I'm talking about freedom. Freedom for Peltier. I was born on the reservation on a faithful 6-foot ride. Kids cannons ring out, unarmed men, women, and children die. Cannonball in Missouri, the river of tears, our people cry. Across the waters of Sand Creek, winter wind blow cold. Cheyenne River, standing in a rock stronghold. Single lives on, and the struggle of our people unfolds. Talking about freedom. Freedom for Peltier. Talking about freedom. Freedom for Peltier. I was born on the reservation in 1909. In a prison of unjust men whose laws are not mine. Goliathi and the intelligence on the front line. I was born on the reservation in 1975. In a reign of terror, our people trying to survive. In the spirit of Joe's sons and prayers that never made out alive. Yeah, we're talking about freedom. Freedom for Peltier. We're talking about freedom for Peltier. We're talking about freedom. Freedom for Peltier. Clemency. Clemency now. Talking about freedom. Freedom for Peltier. Talking about freedom. Free Peltier.
Thank you so much, Robbie, for that amazing song and that message, right? Free Leonard Peltier, that's why we're here. So the echoes of that music, I hope they're heard across all these waters. Thank you. Next, we have Leonard's daughter, Kathy Peltier, who will be here to speak. And I just want to remind everyone, ground us in the fact that we're here to honor our elder. And we have a member of his family here to treat with respect and love and care. So thank you all so much.
Kathy Dennis Bot Peltier, Shima and Begin Shija Leonard Peltier, Shana Kaitina, Ishkanato, Turnamountain Do, Ogalakota. Good afternoon. I just introduced myself in my traditional language, which is I'm an enrolled member of the Navajo tribe. But I'm also Lakota and Turtle Mountain Ojibwe. I usually start out with saying June 26, 1975, the shootout happened. I wasn't born. I was born November 2nd, 1975. So I wasn't even born until after. And the first time I got to see my dad was in Fargo, North Dakota, in his trial. That was the first time he saw me. I was close to 2 years old. I am the youngest daughter of Leonard Peltier. I just didn't come out yesterday, last week, or a week ago, fighting for my dad. I've been fighting him all my life. Ever since I could speak, we've been talking about his freedom, his clemency. When I was a kid, we used to go and see him at Leavenworth. We used to all fight for his time because he has other children too. I just happened to be the baby. We'd fight for his time within those 6 hours. It was hard every time leaving because sometimes we didn't get to see him every week. Sometimes maybe once a month, once a year. We had to fight also with his lawyers, people who were fighting for his freedom, his clemency. It was hard in 2016, but it's always been hard every time there's a president comes in, promises, or says he'll grant clemency, but it always seems like it's infiltrated with you know who. But in 2016, my brother had approached and a couple of people from the Leonard Peltier Defense Committee and asked what they needed to do to grant my dad clemency. And they followed everything to the T to what was needed. In that whole process, it was called Peltier Week. We lost one of my brothers. That was the hardest thing we could process. Coming all the way to DC, granting for my dad's freedom. But we lost our brother. So when I was here, we were driving around a few days ago and I was like, what am I doing here? I had this anxiety. Thinking, we'll probably lose another family member again. Granting his clemency. So his freedom is really necessary. He needs to just free all of us and his kids. And I'm talking about his grandkids and his great-grandkids. So I hope those of you who can write Biden, ask for his clemency. Because it's just not affecting him, it's affecting us, his kids too. I don't know who Leonard Peltier is, but all I know is he's my dad. And I only got to know him through the books, the documentaries, and it's not very much. When I was growing up, they were telling me, you know, your dad is a very funny guy. He's very funny when you're on his good side, or when he's having a good day. I don't know him like that. He's always been serious with us, telling us to make a good example, telling us to be good, go to school. That's all he could really do. So I don't know how to take this, but I hope, you know, this president listens now. I hope he listens to everybody asking for his clemency, his freedom. But I also want to thank all these supporters, all these years, supporting my dad. I thank you. Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Kat.
Kathy. It's an honor to have Kathy here with us. And so now we're going to turn to our drum group from Minneapolis for a song, and then we'll go on to our next speaker. So thank you, everybody. Maybe mention that we
Thank you so much for that beautiful music. I just want to say that at the end of this rally that we're going to be reading a statement directly from Leonard. So for everyone that's here, just know that that's coming, and thank you for staying and being in community with us today. And now I'll be introducing Nick Tilson, who will be joining us to speak on behalf of Leonard.
Habendakiapi, Nick Tilson, Amachiapi, Tranteawash Tenape Chuzapalo. It's good to see each and every one of you out here today. Oglala Lakota, come from the wild band of the Oglalas. Is there any Oglalas here in the house? It's an honor to come here from our homelands and to stand with each and every one of you for the justice for Leonard Peltier, who today is the longest existing indigenous political prisoner in America today. And his freedom and his justice is bound up in the liberation that each and every one of us are fighting for. At the time of Leonard's incarceration, the FBI was waging a war against the American Indian movement, was waging a war against the freedom and the liberation that we were fighting for. And we continue that same fight today in each and every of all the work that we do to rise up. And there's an opportunity before this administration. This administration talks about justice. It talks about racial justice. It talks about racial equality. Yet, Leonard is still in prison. And so we're here to call for the clemency for Leonard Peltier. There's a duality of the justice that exists. On the same day of the shootout at Oglala, the FBI killed somebody that day. Joe Stunts. Joe Stunts was killed by a bullet from the FBI. And to this day, there's been no justice for him. Yet, Leonard sits there in prison. This is a reminder of how we as indigenous people are treated in this system. And so as we fight and give our voice to Leonard Peltier and for his freedom, we must remember Joe Stunts and his family whose life was taken that day. And there's an opportunity for the President of the United States to decide what side of history is he on. Does he want to be on the side of history that has persecuted indigenous people, that has locked up our people, that has imprisoned our people? Or does he want to make a decision of consciousness to free Leonard Peltier? And so we ask this question to the President of the United States, to the Biden administration. What side of history are you on? Because we know damn well what side of history we are on. We have to, in these moments, growing up in this movement, I look around, there's less and less of our elders in this circle because they moved on to the spirit world. And every single one of the leaders of our movement, one of the things that they wanted was for freedom for Leonard Peltier. And they instilled in us that fight to not be scared, to not be fearful, to stand in our power. And it's the same power that Leonard Peltier stands in every single day. In his book, he talks about his life being his Sundance. He talks about the sacrifice he is making. He is in there not just for his own freedom, but he's in there as a representation of indigenous liberation for indigenous people everywhere. And as a people, we have to continue to fight. One of the best ways that we can honor Leonard Peltier, and one of the best ways that we can honor our elders, is to continue to stand up and fight. And I want to share something that we did earlier. Bring that staff up. Just a little bit ago, we came up here, and the staff that's standing next to me on my right-hand side here, the staff was given to us to make a stand for the people, to make a stand for the land. And earlier, we went up there, and we counted coup on that statue. And we did that as a symbolism of resistance, recognizing that the movement still lives within the people today. As we fight for our land back, as we fight for the justice and freedom for our people, we will continue to embody that resistance. And so I urge us to protest and to march, but we have to continue to put pressure, because any time anything has ever happened for Indigenous people is when we put pressure on the system. And the system is designed to create whiplash on us. When we rise up, they try to jail us. They try to incarcerate us. They try to beat us. They try to separate us from our families. And we're here to say that no matter what they do, whatever they do to us, they will never imprison our spirits like they have never imprisoned Leonard Peltier's spirit. So I share these words. As a child, I sat around my kitchen table in Porcupine. My parents fighting for Leonard Peltier. My grandfather fighting for Leonard Peltier. I was one of these kids at this march. You can ask my aunties. You can ask my uncles. I was one of those snotty-nosed res kids running around here. But the thing that I learned, and the thing that I learned from that, is that when we rise up, we carry the work of those who have come before us. And if you think of all of our elders, all of our ancestors, they prayed for this moment. They said, who will continue on to fight for the American Indian movement? Who will continue on to fight for Leonard? And that's us. We're here today as a people. I want to end by saying that I believe that liberation is not only possible, but the actions that we are doing today are laying the foundation for the liberation and freedom for all of our people. And I ask us to ask ourselves a question, and I've been proposing this question to Indigenous people everywhere, is that, and this is a hard question for us to ask as Indigenous people, of everything that we have ever been through, colonization, oppression. But the question that I urge us to ask ourselves, is it possible that the best days of our people are actually in front of us and not behind us? And if we believe that, then it requires action today. It requires sacrifice today. It requires commitment today. It requires movement today. And it must continue on with the liberation for Leonard Peltier. Wopila Tonka Chichapalo.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for those words. And we must think, we have to look ahead, look forward, acknowledge the past, but know that we're working towards a better and brighter future for the next generations. Next, we'll have a song by Mitch Walking Elk.
You're going to get more than a song. Haba, Nate Ina, Hasian Ananis Inaga Unawa. Natusa Wawone Sehem. In the Cheyenne language, that means there will be no surrender. And what that means is, that doesn't mean we're always going to be fighting. That means we will keep getting well. That we need to keep recognizing the wounds within ourselves and to keep healing. And you know, I'm a boarding school. Nowadays they call us survivors. I guess we are. Boarding school survivor. And I've heard some really powerful speakers here today. Nick Estes, Nick Tilson, Rachel Thunder. You know, I was around, I used to listen to Russell talk, Russell Means, Dennis Banks speak, and Clyde and Vernon and Madonna and some of those old guys who got us redirected on this path that we're on today. And those speakers today, you remind me of them. And I was on the longest walk in 1978. And you know, it was tough. I had to leave because in those days I was a wanted man. And the feds found out I was with the walk. So I had to leave it. But you know, Kevin Sharp, when he spoke, he talked about, or maybe it was Nick, one of those guys. They talked about this system, and one of the most foolish questions that has been asked of this day and time is, does racism, or is there systemic racism in America? One of the largest evidence of that, the biggest evidence of systemic racism, is the theft of this continent and the theft of this land. And then the denial to make things right. And so the FBI has the mindset of its founder, J. Edgar Hoover. And so in the 1980s, there was a man from Australia by the name of Stephen White who put together a CD, asked different native musicians to send in music so he could use that money from that CD to help pay for the Leonard Peltier Defense Committee. And in 1992, Robbie Romero, the man who performed before, and myself, and Benito Concha, Robbie and Benito were the band Red Thunder at that time. We went into Leavenworth Prison and we did a concert for Leonard and the Bros there. I submitted 3 songs for that CD, and this one's called Eagle Horse, and it's that's the one they put on the CD for Leonard. 120 years since blood stained the land. A treaty passed down, you hold in your hand. Poison and politics have taken their toll. The elders are dying and the children grow. What can you do when the claim checks come in? And all of the people are in line once again. They kill off the legends and corrupt good minds, till strong ways of old days are now hard to find. Eagle horse, you're not alone.
spirits of the old ones will carry you on. There's a woman beside you and the children at play, and the sun shines upon you to help bring a new day. The water and the rivers, they no longer run pure. A new kind of sickness for which there's no cure. You've been before Congress to present your plea, the same as your fathers before Wounded Knee. Iroquois, Navajo, Lakota, Sioux, Eagle Claw, Indian Law, and Buffalo too. The old ones, they call you to help clear the way. Eagle Horse, look around, stand up and pray. Eagle Horse, you're not alone. Spirits of the old ones will carry you on. There's a woman beside you and the children at play, and the sun shines upon you to help bring a new day. 120 years since blood stained the land. Eagle Horse, is that a child you hold in your hand? Free Peltier.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those words and that beautiful song. And next, it's my pleasure to introduce Natalie Segovia.
Sumakpunchay ayayanchu, anchatan anchayki, kaipa, kaipikas kaiki manta. Good day. And it is a good day, even though it's cold. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Natalie Segovia. I'm Quechua from the Global South, from Peru. I stand here in solidarity and in relation with all of you who are our relations. Thank you so much for walking, for believing in justice, because even though it's a hard road, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you for those that dreamt and that made that dream a reality to be here today. In my day job, which I have an honor to do, I serve as the legal director of the Water Protector Legal Collective, a legal organization that started at Standing Rock as the legal tent in response to the repression by the state and by the government against water protectors that were laying their lives down in front of the Dakota Access Pipeline to stop extraction on ancestral lands, on treaty lands. So thank you for all of those that are Lakota relatives that are here today, that have been here and that have been on those front lines and that continue to be on those front lines on a daily basis. It was the founding mission of the Water Protector Legal Collective to protect protectors as a mass defense organization in response to the mass criminalization of water protectors. What we've seen, as so many others have talked about today, is the ongoing repression by the state, the federal government, and the extermination via policy and practice, and the erasure of indigenous peoples on this land, as we've seen in the South and as we've seen all around the world. So when we stand here in relation with you all as indigenous peoples of the Global South, as indigenous peoples all around the world, as these flags show us, we're here because we have to unite in that struggle for justice. As we continue on, We continue to do this work to protect protectors. We continue to do this work also to protect the earth and protect the water. Because at the core, when we're doing this, we're protecting the legacy of our ancestors and fighting for the self-determination and the inherent sovereignty of our peoples. What AIM was fighting for and continues to fight for since the 1970s has been the protection of sovereignty, but not the sovereignty that we talk about within federal Indian law, which is the diminished form of sovereignty, a quasi-sovereignty that's sovereign to these laws that were created many years after the original nations and original peoples of this land were already here. And despite what they teach us in schools and want to indoctrinate us, we are actually still here. Indigenous peoples of the world are still here. We were not exterminated, we were not erased, and we continue to fight back against repression, against extractive industry, against mass development projects. But not just against, we're also fighting for. We're fighting for future generations. We're fighting for a livable future. We're fighting for clean water, for clean air. And we're fighting so that our children will have water to drink, because they cannot drink oil. My partner who's here today is Kanakamoli, and in Hawaii, they are drinking oil because the U.S. Navy has jet fuel in the water and told people that they were safe to drink the water. Children drinking water contaminated with jet fuel. That was what Standing Rock was meant to protect, because Lakota children, Dakota and Nakota children should not be drinking water contaminated with jet fuel or any other kind of fuel, because pipelines will inevitably break. That's what they're meant to do. But we're also here today to honor our elder, Leonard Peltier, who has been on the receiving end of this criminal injustice for over 47 years. 78 years old, and as we heard from his daughter today, Kathy Peltier, who it's an honor to be here with and share this space, he has yet to meet some of his children in person, his grandchildren. That is what we're fighting for. We're fighting for those future generations, and we're fighting for the liberation and the freedom of Leonard Peltier, who's an elder for all of us. When Judge Sharp was up here and he was talking about due process, or he talked about the importance of the law, under international human rights law, due process is more than just something that we talk about. It's a fundamental part of the rule of law that here in the United States, or so-called, and in the Constitution and in all of these documents that lawyers, as lawyers, we're supposed to swear an oath to. It talks about the importance of upholding the rule of law. But without due process, we don't have rule of law, and there was no due process for Leonard Peltier. And there was no due process for him because this is what our communities face on a daily basis. The environmental discrimination, the racial discrimination, the misunderstanding that comes from lack of knowledge, from othering, for not wanting to be in relation with one another or with the earth. That is what we're also fighting against. I want to acknowledge that AIM has been around since the 1970s, and our uncle that played the guitar before me talked about the longest walk. I want to acknowledge that Leonard Peltier has been in prison since 1977. A year later, in 1978, as a result of the longest walk, where walkers did a prayer walk all the way from Alcatraz in the Bay, all the way here to D.C., under the presidency of Jimmy Carter, they signed in 1978 the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. Because until 78, a year after Leonard Peltier was imprisoned, until 78, Sundance was outlawed. Traditional ceremonies were not allowed to be a part of regular practice here in the United States. But only 10 years later, in 1988, there was a case that came down from the Supreme Court called Ling. And if you're an indigenous person in the United States, you know Ling, because in that case they denied the right of indigenous peoples to protect their sacred lands. And they said the American Indian Religious Freedom Act had no cause, gave them no right of action, which means you can't bring a lawsuit. So what is the remedy as an indigenous person living in the United States? What are the remedies that we have to protect our sacred lands, ancestral lands, to protect the water, to protect the earth? Where do we go? That's why we have each other. As part of the organizing that, again, via AIM, via NARF, the Native American Rights Fund, and others, 1993, another Religious Freedom Restoration Act was passed to try to restore what Ling shut down. So we've seen since the 1970s and before an ongoing fight, and we'll continue to fight because that's why we're here. We're here today to honor the treaties. Not just to honor the treaties, to honor the land, to honor the earth, and honor the water. And we're here in international solidarity as one with one voice, with so many different peoples that are here gathered today on these steps to say, free Leonard Peltier. It is time. It is time, and the time is now. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, mi compa en la lucha, Natalie. Thank you, my sister from the South, for your words and your wisdom. And let us remember that Leonard's freedom is intersected to much of what Natalie was speaking of, that we cannot be free until we have safe, clean water for our children, for our future generations. And that we are fighting black snakes beyond Turtle Mountain territory, that we're fighting black snakes in Ecuador, that we're fighting black snakes in the Amazon. And that these issues are so interconnected with one another, and they all come down to freedom for Leonard Peltier. This is where we begin. This is how it starts. So thank you. And next we have the pleasure of hearing a song by Joe Troop.
Check. All right. Here we go. Maybe we could just hold it for him or something. Yeah, sorry. Okay, Benny. All right, this is called Free Leonard Peltier. I thank God for all the outlaws that went and did the world some good. This old world could use good trouble. We ought to do as Leonard would. We have broken every treaty, disavowed them from the start, causing hardship with indifference and a cage around our heart. We write doctrines of injustice, which we sanctify as law. We incarcerate their warriors for doing right. They take the fall. In a run-down Florida prison, Leonard Peltier's doing time.
Really thankful you're able to join us. I'm going to get some food, talk to some people. Keep following Indian Collective. If you want folks to see this, please share it, like it. It was a march for justice, asking for clemency for Leonard Peltier. You saw there's asking folks to reach out to the White House. You can look at the links in the chat or in the description. Make some phone calls, send some emails, keep the pressure up how we can. Very thankful you could join us. And again, my name is Lorenzo Serna. My pronouns are they, them. Chicanx, and I'm the Director of Tactical Media here at the NDN Collective. Really honored and thankful to be able to bring this to you live and be able to participate in the walk for justice. We'll see you in the next one.
We defiled their sacred mountains, chiseled faces in the stone. Our belligerent dead presidents ever looming o'er their home. When their youth rose up in protest